Hello everyone and welcome to another Heffy Doodle card video. Today is super exciting because I have the new Stamptember More Than S'mores stamp set. It's a collaboration for Stamptember with Simon Says Stamp. It is fabulous. I love it so much. I love s'mores.
Some people like the smell of brand new photopolymer. Can you come smell something for me? Put a shirt on.
Really?
The smell's gonna go away if you don't hurry up.
Good.
That's mine! You kind of look like a magazine guy.
I don't know what that means. What am I
You know,
smelling?
like someone that's like ultra, so trendy that we look at you weird.
I don't ever feel that way.
You should right now.
Okay. Some people like that. That's pretty, that's kind
It's
of
intense.
That's kind of,
So I don't personally love the smell of photopolymer stamps, but I know that some people do. I also have this Heffy Doodle masking paper tape. This is a low-tack paper tape that is used for masking. Kind of self-explanatory here, but I'll be using it today as well as some other really fun goodies. Right now, I am using the Your Next Stamp stitched rectangle die to cut down a piece of the brand new Lawn Fawn wood grain cardstock. And then I'm using this MFT Jumbo Peekaboo die to cut out a window in my wood grain cardstock. This is going to help create the front panel of my card today. We're also going to do some ink blending, so I'm making some marks with my pencil onto a piece of Strathmore Bristol smooth white cardstock. And I'm using my ink daubers and some Distress Oxide inks to create a starry sky. Now this is gonna look really ugly before it gets good, okay? Trust me on this. But I've got black soot, I'm blending on faded jeans, then I've got blueprint sketch and some Seedless preserves. We don't get to see night skies around here too often anymore. In my area, it never used to be like that. Growing up, we would be able to see beautiful starry skies, but where we live, it's very bright and populated. So unfortunately, we see about 5 stars at night. And sometimes it's a little underwhelming. But look at that! It looks like a popsicle with an afro. Bear with me, I know it doesn't look like much now, but if you look at it through the aperture that I've created, it looks a little better, and I'm super excited. So we're gonna do some more. We're breaking out my little homemade color cubby here with the diaper box, and we've got Hero Arts iridescent spritz, some gold deco art paint, and some white Ranger paint. So we're putting my background into the diaper box to help contain the mess, and all of these things need to be shaken up really well before you use them. I'm just spraying it, you know, a couple feet above the card panel. The white of this iridescent kind of goes away and it's left with shimmer. So in order to add those little white dots that we all know and love for starry skies, I'm adding a little bit of the acrylic paint by Ranger, and I'm going to water this down. Okay, this is just water in a mister, and I'm just adding a few sprays to dilute this white a little bit, and it actually makes it more it's easier to work with, or to spritz it on with the toothbrush this way. I just take my finger and I run it through the bristles, and it flings the paint onto the background into a beautiful starry sky like you see. Now I wanted to use this metallic gold. I'm cleaning off the brush, okay? I did not dilute the gold at first. In my mind, I was thinking, I don't want to dilute the opaqueness of this beautiful gold paint, so I'm gonna spritz it on full blast, full bore, right? And I'm looking at it and I'm like, why isn't this doing much? This is really kind of crappy. This is not doing anything at all, and I am so not happy with this. Don't get me wrong, it looks fabulous, but it's not at all what I was going for. So ultimately, I ended up watering down the gold paint just a little bit. I took a little bit of sprays from that same mister, and this really did the trick. I don't know the science behind it, but the less viscous paint really did splatter the way I want it to. So look at that. It's fabulous. I love it. My happy face is on. So I'm using this fire image from my Sweet Stamp Shop This Guy stamp set. It's just some fire with some little flicks, but I want to mask it. So I'm using this Heffy Doodle masking paper tape. It's very low tack. It has a paper-like feel. You can write on it. It's very nice, very easy to use. I'm just using a little bit of Memento Tuxedo black ink, stamping it down on the masking paper first, and then I'll be able to cut that out and be able to mask my fire. So I'm stamping on Nina 110-pound cardstock. I am going to be doing some Copic coloring, but first I must mask my fire. So this requires fussy cutting, which is not my forte, but this is kind of easy because the image has a very thick line, so that makes fussy cutting a little bit easier, but I wanted to save those little flicks also, so that is wherein lies the difficulty. But I'm glad I did that. I'm glad I took the time to do it. I'm lining up the deer from the More Than S'mores stamp set by Heffy Doodle and Simon Says Stamp. I decided that I ultimately am going to stamp 2 male deer onto my card. So I stamped down the one deer, and if you notice, that little flick kind of goes, the fire flick, goes right on by his arm, but we've masked it, so we'll be able to color that easily. I'm just checking to make sure my images are going to fit in my window, which they don't. I ended up having to use my images on the outside of the window, but that's okay. I still love how the card turned out. I also need to stamp some of the s'mores, so I grabbed the little s'more image from the More Than S'mores stamp set. I'm also stamping that in Memento Tuxedo Black with my big head in the way. I'm using an acrylic block because this image is so small, it's just really a lot easier to stamp it this way. I started with 1 image, but I ended up stamping 4. It's okay, I colored them all and they all look gorgeous. I'm breaking out my Copic markers for some Copic coloring. If you do not wish to watch the Copic coloring, please skip to 10 minutes in this video. I know it's long, bear with me. But you can skip past the coloring at least, right? I also have a Copic color map for the deer that I colored today. It's over on my blog. And sometimes you can find it on Pinterest when I remember to pin the actual things I make to be pinned. And then I forget to pin them, and then nobody can access them. So yeah, my life is great. I do have a fun tip for you. Copic has an app that I access often. Right now, I'm checking to make sure that I have all of those E70 markers that I'm using to color this deer, only because it jumps from E74 to 77, and I thought maybe I was missing one, but I'm not. This app really is useful. It has multiple functions, but it's a great way to keep track of your Copic collection. I love it so that when I'm at the store and I see them physically at the store, I can access on my phone what markers I have because I can't memorize all of them. There's like 360 some Copic markers. And the app helps me keep track of my collection so that when I'm at the store, I can say, hey, I have that E74 and I don't repurchase it. Hopefully, fingers crossed. So I'm just using the E70 markers, which sometimes can be a little difficult to blend with because of that jump from E74 to E77. But you can either do the tip-to-tip technique, which I've done before, or just give it a little extra love and a little extra blending time, and make sure you're not oversaturating your paper to reduce the bleeding, because you can oversaturate your paper and have some bleeding. But I love the way these deer turned out. I love the E70s for this particular image, or for deer. I think it's a great deer color. I just used the higher numbers for the antlers and then the lower numbers for his body. And then I ended up painting or coloring his ears a little bit pink with the R20. And then I used some E30s for his belly and his, I want to say beak, and that is not correct. Is it a muzzle or some kind of facial part of the deer? I don't know, but I used the E30s, and then I colored his hooves and nose black. So super simple for the finishing touches. I also did add some Jelly Roll black glaze pen to his eyes, And then I'll show you later how I added a little bit of sparkle to the images, but I've colored my s'mores. I do have a complete list of all the markers that I used, I promise. Here is my background. Isn't it gorgeous? It's still wet. Can you believe it? It's still wet, everything I try to do. But it looks fabulous. I am so excited about this. Galaxy backgrounds are so fun to create because you really can't mess them up too much. So I did take my heat tool to it, but ultimately I said screw it and I'm just gonna cut it down. So I'm making some marks because I want it to live behind that aperture panel. When you do this and it's still wet, you will get paint on your blade. So ask me how I know. Ask me how I figured that one out. I got paint on something else. Anyway, I'm using Scotch 3M foam tape, and I actually doubled the foam tape for this. I really wanted it to pop up and give a lot of dimension. But I used Lawn Fawn glue tube liquid adhesive for the rest. After I added it to the panel, that bottom part is sticky, and then I used the liquid adhesive on the back and then added it to my Simon Says Stamp Fog card base. As if that double foam tape was not enough dimension, we're adding more foam tape to the images to pop them up. I originally imagined this card with the deer living inside that circle, but they didn't fit. So I had to put them outside. I still love the way that it turned out. I think it does give the same effect. Plus you get to see the whole gorgeous image that Leslie designed. I'm adding Jelly Roll Stardust pen. This pen is amazing and it makes everything super shiny, including my fire. So I wanted to add a purple banner, but I couldn't decide which purple cardstock to use because they all looked freaking fabulous. So I ultimately made my husband decide, and he chose Papertrey Ink Royal Velvet. So that's what we're going to use. I'm also going to use Spellbinder's ribbon banners. First to cut the ribbon banner with my die cutting machine, and then to emboss. Once I flip my little machine around to make sure that it's on the embossing setting or sandwich, I'm going to emboss the lines of this ribbon banner in true Spellbinders fashion. You can't really tell on the video, but it's there. So now I'm going to pull out my Fiskars stamp press. I know that these are somewhat still available in some fashion, but I'm going to turn it around and mold my sentiment, the I love you from the More Than S'mores stamp set, to fit inside that banner. Okay, so now it's shaped, it's not straight, it's shaped in that curvature of the banner. I'm going to prep it with my EK Success powder tool and add some VersaMark ink to my stamp and just line it up just like I did, and it stamps perfectly within the lines of that ribbon banner. I'm using Zing Lavender Embossing Powder, so this is like a lighter purple, so it looks great on that darker royal velvet purple. I just stamped it once and heated up with my heat tool. But I also want a sub-sentiment, so it's going to say, I love you even more than s'mores. So I'm using these stitched strips of ease, and I'm cutting my strip first from Lawn Fawn Black Licorice cardstock. I've put it in my Misty, and I'm using the Even More Than stamp. And I've embossed that with white, Ranger white embossing powder. And now I'm lining it back up and adding the s'mores word at the end of that phrase, just like so, trying to line it up so it doesn't look all crooked like. And the Misty really helps with this technique, but you can also do it with an acrylic block or a stamp press. I'm using Zing Apricot. It's an orange. And I think it looks great. Orange, black, and purple are all very popular colors here in my area. Go Ravens, go O's. I'm taking the stitched strips of ease and I'm just lining it up to the end of my sentiment to cut it short, and adding some Scotch 3M foam tape to the back of both that banner and the Even More Than S'mores sub-sentiment there. They are both popped up onto the front. So now I'm going to enhance my s'mores a little bit. I'm going to add a little bit of glue to the top of my s'mores, and then add a little bit of Lawn Fawn Prisma glitter on top of that, because I don't know about you, but we like the sugared graham crackers around here. More sugar all the time. So I'm just using my little spoon to add a little bit of sugar to the top and dropping it all over the place. Don't worry, it's still on there. And adding a little bit of Scotch 3M foam tape to the back so that my s'mores are also popped up onto my card panel. And I'm just making it so that they're holding both of the s'mores. I thought that would complete my card for today, but I did end up adding, after I creased it with my bone folder, I did end up adding a Doodlebug white heart. These are the tiny hearts shaped sprinkles. I just added a little white heart above my deer. I think it looked fabulous. The pictures don't do this card justice. The shimmer from that Hero Arts iridescent spray doesn't pick up well on camera. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please follow me or Heffy Doodle on social media. We love to talk to you. Leave a comment down below because I love talking to you guys. And until next time. What do you think?
Came out with a photo shoot, and they did it with.
Your call was about your nails.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm not getting my nails done. What do you think?
They didn't stop paying.
I think it's cool. You are by far geeked out and beyond everybody else.
Look at your little doors. Those are so cool.
Yep, it has USB. It has music.
There's fries in here. There are fries in here somewhere. Fries are in here. There are fries in here.
It looks like a big bucket of cheese.
And bacon.
I don't bacon at first.
I don't care if there's potatoes in there, to be perfectly honest with you.
What do you got?
I got a cheesesteak and some chips.
A little pizza.